Now, you were there earlier in 1991. You were part of the Royal Rumble. How was Vince treating you at that point?
Great. My trip there in '90, I would have never gone back in '96 if that had been, anything but the way it was. When I left in January of '91, my father, I left because my father had come down with late stage COPD. He was a lifelong smoker, World War II vet, couldn't live alone. So I went and I'm pretty sure it was Erie, Pennsylvania or Buffalo. It was someplace along the lake there. And Niagara Falls is where it was. And I went and talked to Vince. I explained to Vince, and Vince went on and on telling me about how important family is, and that he considered me to be a great employee, and I was welcome back anytime, and was paid much better, ironically paid much better in 1990-91 than I was in 1996 in the semi-main event, even though I was nothing but a mid-card guy there in 90. But I loved working there in 1990. I really did enjoy it, or I wouldn't have gone back in 96.
When you went to WWF in 1995, you were there, and you were one of the only ones really vocal about how the Kliq treated and really ruined a lot of people's careers. Right. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, because look, I come from, I was broken into the business by Dominic DeNucci and Bruno Sammartino and that class of guys. And that generation, it was much more fraternity. They'd get 4 or 5 guys in a car, and they would literally drive town to town to town to town. That's why the old territories were set up the way they were. And as a result, those guys became very close, very friendly, looked out for each other. If you and I were wrestling tonight and you were hurt, I'd go out and do all the bumps and stuff so you could take it easy. I mean, there really was a camaraderie amongst the guys. I had never seen that in the business anywhere except for ECW. So when I went there in '96 to WWF, I had been friends with Sean in 1990 when I was there. Marty, Sean, Dustin, and I. We called ourselves the Four Amigos. Where you saw one of us, you literally saw all of us.
Shawn Michaels.
Yes, we partied together. We traveled together. In fact, when we were anywhere near the Pittsburgh area, those guys. My brother is a set designer in Hollywood, and he has a big house up on the hill over top of my house. And I would give them the key and let them stay at his house. So and then Scott Hall and I and Johnny Ace, we all traveled together in 1988, I believe it was. So I had history with these guys, what I thought was a long friendship with these guys. So when I went there in 96 rather, and started seeing this from these guys, it shocked me, not so much. I didn't personally see the Kliq stuff until right before I left. And that was a big portion of the reason why I did leave. But I remember in Montreal, it was I think it was the first week I was on the road. Because remember, I was there for like a month or so. We're just doing the vignettes as the Dean to introduce the character. The first week I was on the road, Chris Candido, Tammy, Justin Credible, and myself, we all 4 hailed a car. So we were driving together. We were in Montreal, and when you walked into the old Molson Center, which is gone now, there was a long, sloping like rampway that came down. There were 2 dressing rooms off there, and I went to wheel my bag into one of those rooms. Sean grabbed me by there and said, "No, you don't dress with them. You dress with us." So I followed them down to the bottom, past the Zamboni machine, and they dressed where the Montreal Canadiens dressed. So I walked in, and doors over here, and it was not much bigger than this room. And I had my bag open on the bench, and I'm getting dressed. And Sean asked Kevin Nash, who was the champion at the time, "What are you doing tonight?" Now, the background on the story of the town is that Montreal had steadily been in decline. The houses were dropping. What used to be a sellout, they were doing around $60,000 then, which was way, way down for them. Or 60% full, rather.
This is when Kevin was the champion.
Yes. And so Pierre, Carl Ouellet,
right,
was local there, and he went out and he busted his ass to get the town up, get a lot of PR out on the town. And Vince had put him in the main event, being the local guy against Kevin. So when Sean asked Kevin what they were doing, Kevin said, I remember it was yesterday, it was standing right here in front of me. Sean asked him, and Kevin said, well, Vince wants some kind of a hot finish to have a return. And Sean said, fuck what Vince wants. He said, and he's like looking up at Kevin. He's going, when you were working with a world champion, didn't you put him over clean? He goes, well, yeah, but it was different. And Sean goes, no, it wasn't different. You're the world champion now, so this piece of shit should put you over clean. And he just like running him down. He starts pantomiming. He starts telling him, power bomb, 1, 2, 3, power bomb. He kept saying that over and over again. He goes to walk out of the room, and right as he goes to open the door, Carl's walking in. Carl's blind, I believe, in the right side. And Sean, who was just calling him every name in the book, goes, hey, Carl, how you doing, buddy? And walks around his blind side. And I'm watching this. It's happening right in front of me. He walks out as Carl walks in, and then he does like you would do in high school or middle school, does a Yui and comes up, and he's standing right behind Carl's blind side. He was literally like 12 inches behind him. And when he asked Kevin about what he wanted to do, Kevin was like, well, I could tell Kevin wanted to do the right thing, but Sean is standing right behind Carl, and he's like pantomiming it. And I'm sitting there watching this and thinking, like, well, this is pretty bizarre, And a few minutes later, I went up to get my draw, and Sean was in there and started telling the dressing room, like berating Carl in front of the dressing room. Now, Carl's a tough kid, and
berating him to his face.
Not to his face, in the room with him, and a room full of people. And Carl realizes what's going on. He's going, Sean, that's not what I said. He starts moving toward him. Of course, everybody starts getting between them and everything. And that night afterwards, we went back and we were staying at the Days Inn at the Montreal airport. Mine and PJ's room was right off of the front desk. And we're walking in. The clique walks in, all five of them together. And they tapped me on the shoulder. I don't know, forget which one it was. And they said, hey, we're down in this room. We ordered pizza and beer. Come down. We want to talk to you. So I walked down to the room. And I walked in. Kevin was laying on the bed. And the others were milling around the room. And Sean said, what, you see all that shit that happened in the building tonight? What'd you think about that? And I said, well, I understand where Carl's coming from. You can't have a return if you just do a clean job in the middle of the ring, And Sean goes, see, I told y'all, Shane understands the business. He goes, you don't understand, Shane, it's different here. Again, the alternate universe theory, I said, well, how's it different? If he does a clean job, you can't do a return. So they all start talking and throwing, bouncing stuff back and forth across the room, saying, like what they could do to get him. And there's one's saying we should do this, and another one saying we should do that. All five of them bouncing stuff back and forth, and I'm leaning against the bureau in front of the mirror watching this. At first, it was so ridiculous to me. I thought they're ribbing me. Like, they're just fucking with me because it's my first week on the road, Finally, Kevin went to pick the phone up, and he goes, fuck it, I'm just going to call Vince and tell him to fire him. And to this day, I don't know, I can't remember which one it was because it was like bookends. Whichever one did this didn't say the thing later. So it's interchangeable names. Either Sean or Scott went over and hung the phone, and they said, no, let's think about this. And they kept going back and forth. And then finally, whichever one didn't hang the phone up said this, fuck it, let's call Vince and tell him to starve him for the next 3 years. And I remember thinking to myself, this is like watching a woman being raped. This is pretty brutal stuff. This guy's going to catch all this hell just because he wanted to do what Vince wanted him to do? I mean, this is pretty strange. And so when I left the room, I thought, well, that's not going to go anyplace. It's just a bunch of the wrestlers bitching in a room someplace. And then I saw Carl start to see his bookings decline. And, over the course of the next several months, you could start to see all this stuff happening to people that were confronting the clique. And then right towards the end, when they turned their guns on me, when, Vince had sat me and Sean down and had already told us the angle, the entire angle. It was to be a replay of the Rick Rude Ultimate Warrior angle. I would beat him for the Intercontinental belt at WrestleMania, Chin Music for the world title. And I've always said, anybody's ever heard me talk about Sean in interviews, Sean is one of the exceptional workers of our business, a fantastic in-ring performer. And, I think I'd proven myself as a heel. I think Sean and I, had we been able to work together, would have been able to put on some captivating matches. But to have that match, it requires both participants contributing. You can't go in there thinking, I'm just going to half-ass it to make this guy look bad or to make myself look better or whatever. You have to go in there both working to get the other guy over. And that's where what I call the sweet stuff happens, where you get to those points, those incredible matches that, you know, like Bret Hart and Steve Austin, and those matches that are those iconic matches that stick out in your head.
So you guys were supposed to have like a trilogy. You would go one and
yes. And at the time, Bill Watts was in booking with the WWF. Now remember, I got my break in the UWF under Bill, so I had a long history with Bill, and Bill knew what I was capable of doing in the ring. In Valparaiso, Indiana, they had a TV taping one night, and they put me in the ring with Shawn in a dark match before the taping started. Bill did. Bill wanted to see what kind of chemistry we had. And the place was sold out, about 17,000 people. And we circled around, and you could feel the energy of the people. They're just ready to see these two names go at it. We go to lock up, and as I do, Shawn takes a flat back bump, and he's laying on the mat laughing. And I knew at that point, nobody had to tell me, I knew behind the curtain right now, Bill had steam coming out of his ears. Because Bill would have fully expected me to drop on him and sugar him or something. And I looked down and I said, unless you ain't your ass stretched, you better get back to your feet. And he jumped up and he put his hand over his mouth going, lighten up, Dean, haha, lighten up, it's just a joke, Dean, haha, like that kind of stuff. And I thought, I know Bill Watts is going crazy back there. And the whole match was pulling teeth. If I would call something, he would call something off, and I said, no, goddammit, backdrop. So the whole match was like pulling teeth. We come through the curtain, and I'm pissed off. Bill's looking at me, Bill goes like this, and I know Bill, when Bill goes off in the back, first time I'd ever talked back to him, I said, I don't want to hear Bill talk to your golden boy. And I walked past him. But Vince had already sat us down. He wanted us to, at that In Your House, we'd go out and put on this showcase, and I'd beat Shawn with some nefarious Dean move to beat him for the Intercontinental belt, and then later at WrestleMania, the chin music for the world title. We were supposed to fly in Tuesday to Regina. And I'd been in Germany the 3.5 weeks leading up to that. I got home on like a Friday or a Saturday, and the next day, Davey Boy Smith, constantly the Ribber, called me up, stirring the pot, is what he was doing. Called me up and he said, Shane, I just wanted to tell you that while you were in Germany the whole time, Shawn was talking shit on you. So what was he saying? He said, well, he's telling everybody he's going to embarrass you on the pay-per-view. I'd like to see him try. I'll stretch his ass. And the next day, I get a phone call from J.J. Dillon saying, you don't need to fly in early to Regina now. Shawn's had a relapse of a concussion and can't work. Well, because of my medical school background, I know you don't relapse concussion unless you get hit in the head again. I said, well, how do you get hit? Because I'm thinking, if you had this serious of a concussion, why the hell would you be doing anything where you can get hit in the head again? And he said, well, he didn't get hit again. He just had a relapse. So I knew right there what was going on. And flew in the last flight on Saturday. Jim Cornette and I were on the last flight into Regina. Went to the hotel. I was rooming with Dustin. He'd already checked in. So I get into the room, and there's a note on the bed that says, hey, everybody's down at the bar waiting for you. So I get my stuff laid out, and I go downstairs. I walk in the bar. The bar is packed, wall-to-wall fans and boys, like shoulder to shoulder. But over the top of the crowd, I see this. Somebody like waving. So it's sort of dark in the bar, and I'm looking. Scott Hall waving me over. Now, there was already heat between us at this point, so I'm thinking, well, this is going to be interesting. So I walked over, he'd saved me a seat, drunk as a skunk. When I sat down, he said, yeah, you hear Shawn can't wrestle tomorrow. And I said, yeah, I heard that. And he said, well, you didn't hear this from me, but congratulations, champ. You're getting the belt tomorrow. Now, stop right there. Where I come from in the business, the only people that should know this angle is Vince McMahon, me, and Shawn. No reason for anybody outside of that circle to know. And, but when Scott was drunk and drinking, he just blah, 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 would just stooge off the world. So I kept letting him talk, and he never said how I was going to get the belt. But, so I wasn't sure, maybe because he was, drunk, is he just making this up? They've already told me Shawn's not wrestling. So the next day we get to the building, and Vince calls me down to his room. And, it was, in Regina, must have been whoever the Regina hockey team is, must have been their room. It was a big open locker room. But there was only one, like in any locker room and the lights are turned off, there's always like one light on, like a security light. So Vince had his table under this one security light, and the whole room's dark, So we walk in, we sit down, and he starts telling me about, how much he admires my work, and it goes on and on and on. And finally, he said, he starts explaining to me, he says, we here in the World Wrestling Federation believe the fans should always go home happy. And I said, well, that's where I would disagree with the World Wrestling Federation and Vince. I said, it's fine to send him home happy once in a while. But as a heel, I've seen the benefit, tangible benefit to a company when you send those fans home pissed off once in a while. So this kind of discussion. It went on for part of it, 45 minutes, just back and forth, and him, complimenting me and us having this, philosophical, back and forth between us. And I said, he starts explaining to me, how he does things. And I said, Vince, let me explain to you how I do things. You're the guy that signs my check. You tell me what you want, and I'll give it to you. There may be times I disagree, and if so, I'll bring that up to you. But if ultimately you tell me that's the way you want it done, I'm going to give it to you that way because you signed my check. He says, well, I appreciate that. And so tonight, what we're going to do is Sean, is going to come out to the ring. He's, at this point, I've not heard anything about the match yet. He says, so tonight, I want you to go out there and do one of those promos. You get that crowd really worked up. And then Sean's going to come down in his street clothes. And at that point, he's going to forfeit the belt to you. I went, oh, please don't do that. And he goes, well, why not? And I said, Vince, for my entire life growing up and breaking into the business, I've heard Intercontinental Champion after Intercontinental Champion saying, you'd have to pry this belt from my cold, dead hands, blood, sweat, and tears, or until I get a little bump on the head, then I'll just give it to you. I said, I'll go out and lay down for him. Can he do a super kick? Have me cut that promo, have him super kick me and cover me. We'll do the match later when he's well enough. I said, but don't do that. I appreciate that, but this is what we have to do tonight. And says that I can come up with whatever finish I want. Well, I get ahead of myself in the story. So we're sitting there for 45 minutes with this talk in this dark room. He goes, and then Sean will hand that belt to you, and then he goes, and then at that point, so I'm sitting there looking at him like this. I follow his arm. What's he doing? I follow his arm and I look over, and Scott Hall is sitting in one of the lockers over here on the side of the room. I've seen mind games played, but this is beyond the pale of stupid, And so that's when he said, at that point, Razor will come out and beat you for the Intercontinental belt. So I don't believe that any wrestling fan out there realized they just wanted to put baby to baby, right, and put this guy in the middle. It was, all over that entire angle. I think he blew it. Anything that Sean and I could have given it at the very moment he hands me that belt, killed that entire angle. And I think Sean knew that. And
you said you were scheduled to wrestle him at WrestleMania for the title?
Yeah, that Regina, whenever that was, it was in October, I believe.
95.
Yeah. And then
96 would have been
96 WrestleMania would have been the main event.
Or maybe he probably wanted to sabotage it because he wanted the title from Brett.
Yeah.
But now you didn't have any problems with them. You said when you came in, they all knew you. You traveled with Sean, you traveled with Razor. Do you think it was like a pack? The environment of the clique of them being together is what caused the turmoil.
Yeah,
one-on-one talking to each guy.
Yeah, Kevin Nash is the most notable. Kevin and I had always gotten along great, and anytime Kevin was not around them, he was fantastic. Same with Sean Waltman and Hunter, really, at that point. But when they got together, it was almost like, screw everybody else, this is ours. Nobody else is going to. Shawn Michaels said to me one time, right around that, I can't remember if it was before this, the Regina thing or after, and he said, you can make friends or you can make money. I choose to make money. I said, well, I don't see it as a binary choice. It's, I think you can make money and make friends. But that was, and then it wasn't just me. I'd seen it before me to other people. Then after me, they went after Dustin Rhodes, and they went after Ahmed Johnson, and they went after, and this long list. And, at the time, I remember thinking to myself, there really was a counterbalance that didn't step in because, like Bret Hart and The Undertaker and those guys really had enough leverage. They could have stepped in and said, put an end to this. But I think they were more than happy to watch them go out and savage everybody else and keep them in their own spots. I can't answer why they didn't step in, but, the story that's now been universally, talked about by everybody that saw it and watched it, it was disgusting to me and embarrassing for them that, to me, I've always said, Shawn Michaels is one of the premier workers in the history of our business. Why you would have to stoop to the backstabbing and political stuff? To me, the people that aren't sure of themselves, that don't have any self assurance, are the people that do that. And so, it'd be a question you'd have to ask Shawn Michaels. I don't know why he stooped to do those things, because his in-ring work is truly exceptional. But I think he's put to those of us in the business that have known him prior to that time, since that time, and during that time, I'm embarrassed for him that he doesn't recognize, what he had done to his own reputation inside the business.
Well, he's a born again now. I mean,
well, since he found a smile again now.
Yeah.
That was before or after he lost his smile.